so you only lost 2 games in your thing? So you placed really high then in the tournament. You placed a lot higher than you said you would.
Yeah.
Congratulations. All right, good. Glad to hear it. You've done
Okay.
We're waiting.
We did pretty good.
Oh, because Saul Hinken did not go to ACT.
Huh? Yo, I was get
Sure,
ashamed.
it all works.
Yeah, they've been working every round.
Yeah.
All the buzzers should work.
You're a difference maker. Also, Harrison helped out. Like, Harrison definitely helped
Even though
out.
he had negative.
He had 4 negs. He had 4 negs last game. He helped out. We were not winning all.
Alright. We're making good progress. Playtime 30. Getting to 4th round of the playoffs.
Saul came to watch him.
Raphael, if only if you were
Asked
on
him
the
who
ground,
he was rooting for, and he was
one of the top of the
holy upset, Chris.
Raphael, okay, shut up!
We should get Chicago.
Shut up. We're gonna start reading this round.
I just checked.
Okay. Ready? Toss 1. This leader came to prominence when he gained a job as a postal clerk and founded the Postal Workers Union after being expelled from technical school. After organizing a referendum, this man famously told another leader that our country prefers poverty and freedom to riches and slavery. Many of this leader's political opponents were put on the Black Diet, which meant that they were killed by starvation while imprisoned at Camp Boiro. This leader's nation was invaded in Operation Green Sea, which tried to overthrow his regime and kill the revolutionary Amilcar Cabral. This man, popularly nicknamed the Elephant, outlawed all political parties except his own PDG, and he was deposed by a junta led by Colonel Lassana Conte. This leader gave asylum to Stokely Carmichael and offered the presidency of his nation to Kwame Nkrumah. For 10 points, named this first president of an independent Guinea, who took his name from the Mandinga king Samori.
Bachman Secretary.
That's right.
You suck, Droge.
Sorry, I just like,
Wow.
Just blame Saul. We do.
I'm just like this uncoordinated mess right now. Here's your bonus. This composer was initially denied a Christian burial because of rumors that he had made a pact with the devil. For 10 points, he named this Italian violin virtuoso, who declares to say it was 24 capriccios for solo violin, last week just prior to Rhapsody, and theme by Sergei Rachmaninoff. Yes. Violinists learning the capriccios are often advised to start with this capriccio marked Presto, which was originally dedicated to Rodolphe Kreutzer. Though it's not the first, this capriccio is also dominated by arpeggios.
Second.
16th.
What?
Capriccio 16 is in this key. That's a Capriccio 6 and 10. This is also the key of an adagio attributed to Tommaso Albinoni, which is now thought to be largely the work of Ramo Giazzotto.
It's in G minor. Say G minor.
That's right. You got it. Toss of 2. In a novel with a scene set in this place, the protagonist is placed on a cross and nearly dies until wind blows him into a river. But when the protagonist is about to be burned at the stake, miraculous waves douse the flames. A poem whose final book is set at this place describes its protagonist almost being murdered by the slave Ganymedes. Habercomes and Anthea are sent from their homeland to this place in a so-called ancient penny dreadful called an Ephesian tale. In a poem, the drug Nepenthe, which induces forgetfulness, is from this place and is given to Polydamna by Polydamna to Helen of Troy while she is staying here. Lucius dreams that he will eat a crown of roses and join the cult of a goddess from this ancient country, and Apuleius is the golden ass. Literature from here was often written in demonic script.
That was just like Helen's
Get off the
Egypt.
stage,
She
Droge.
wasn't here.
What? You're wrong.
She got it for you guys.
2 non-parametric estimators for this quantity are named for Anne Chow. What's each? Name this quantity, which roughly refers to a number and variety of different species that are present within a given area. It tends to be very high in equatorial regions like rainforests.
Biodiversity, probably.
Yeah. One method of determining how well you're sampling the diversity of a particular ecological area is to use this technique, in which you see how many different species you find in smaller subsamples of your total pooled sample and plot diversity versus sample. If the curve is asymptotic, you're sampling well enough.
I think it's supposed to make like population ecology.
What do you got? Okay, it's called rarefaction. Several different measures of diversity can be unified into diversity profiles using these numbers, whose 0th and first ones are the species richness and the Shannon index, respectively. They share their name with the coefficient, which determines whether or not the binding of a ligand to an enzyme is cooperative.
Coefficient.
What do you got?
This
This is called the Hill number.
Hill number.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
Toss up 3. You got 10 points. A text central to this movement describes how God descended into the body of a dead man and walked the earth as Elijah. That text from this movement praises Henrietta Davis and Robert Boston as God's Holy Trinity. That book by Robert Rogers states that a predecessor to this movement is sometimes known as, started a predecessor to this movement, sometimes known as the House of Athley. A woman who was part of this movement wrote a memoir claiming to have seen the stigmata on the hand of a man who landed at Palisadoes Airport. That event is celebrated as part of this movement's Groundation Day and is only second to November 2nd, or Coronation Day, in terms of its important holidays. The Holy Pibby and the...
Yeah, so Rasta. Rastafarian. Yeah, Groundation is a Rasta thing, yeah.
All right, your bonus. The White Birch Society, or Shirakawa group of writers, started this art form, which includes Shida Naoyu's Otsujinkichi for 10 points each. In this confessional genre, exemplified by Katai Tayama's Futon and Shimazaki Tosan's The Broken Commandment. In this genre, a book's episodes correspond closely to its author's life. What do you got?
Diary.
This is called the I novel, or the Shishosetsu.
No, I novel.
This Japanese author wrote the I novel Scandal. He may be better known for writing about the Portuguese priest Sebastião Rodriguez's quest to find his former teacher Ferreira in his novel Silence. This author, a member of the Buraiha or Decadent movement, wrote a modern work in the I novel form about Obayozo's descent into alienism and alcoholism, no longer human. He also wrote The Setting Sun. What do you got?
Abe.
It's Osamu Dazai.
You're not allowed to nod smugly, Curtis.
Shut up. Get your Rizzo.
Yeah, that's time. All right, toss it forward. In 1983, Monique Petral created an exact replica of this location. Michael Rappengloik suggested that paintings in this location depicting a box followed by 13 circles and a row of 29 similar dots are both intended to represent phases of the moon. This complex's nave contains a scene showing a pair of animals whose crossed legs indicate a depiction of perspective. Despite depicting a creature with 2 horns, one painting in this location...
LaSalle? LaSalle, France?
No. Despite depicting a creature with 2 horns, one painting in this location is known as the unicorn. A man with a bird-shaped head is depicted lying prone next to a staff topped with a bird head and is seen in its shaft of the dead man, while its axial gallery contains a massive painting known as the Great Black Bull. Pablo Picasso declared, "We have learned nothing in 12,000 years after visiting this complex, which contains the Chamber of Felines and the Great Hall of Bulls." For 10 points in this cave complex in southern France, filled with paintings from the Paleolithic period.
Let's go.
Yes.
Protest? You can pronounce
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it not? Okay,
LaSalle.
so what I heard
I
was
said
LaSalle.
I said LaSalle.
LaSalle without like an LP.
Okay, is that an
I don't know if that's
acceptable
that's like
alternate pronunciation
Just
for
by
LaSalle?
reading that, like you could say like SE is like a.
Okay. I don't know if that's correct, though, right? Like, you see what I mean? Like, that's if that syllable is not correct, then I can't accept the answer. How is it spelled?
It's LASCAU.
It's spelled L-A-S-C-A-U. Okay,
That's
so
exactly
see,
like I-
that's not go. Okay, well, you're welcome to protest that, and we will resolve it if it matters. So, protest noted. We have some protest resolution sheets underneath here, so we get this over here.
Also, like if you heard like LaSalle, that's not very
No, I mean, I'm not sure, I don't know if I heard LaSalle, but I heard LaSalle.
I said-
Should have reached the same question.
Don't fill it out yet.
Don't fill it out, we'll resolve the protest if it matters.
Stop turning around, Ben. You'll break your neck.
Okay. Okay, so for the moment, the bonus goes to you, and it goes as follows. She had several visions, including one of a ladder with a dragon at the bottom, which she climbs to reach her garden, as well as a vision of her deceased brother, Dinocrates, for 10 points each. In this Christian woman of noble birth, who was put to death in 203 CE with her companion Felicitas, and an 8-month pregnant slave. When a wild bull wasn't able to kill her, she was stabbed with a sword. Perpetua. Yeah. Perpetua was killed in this city, ruled by a tribunal of judges called 104. It was ruled by 3 different people, called Hanno the Great and Hamilcar of the Mago line.
Right, Syracuse has Hanno.
Carthage?
Hanno, Hanno, Syracuse.
Carthage is right. Another heroic woman from Carthage was this daughter of Hasdrubal Gisco, who poisoned herself so that the Romans wouldn't be able to parade her in triumph. She had been married to the Numidian king Massinissa.
Oh, okay. Well, Salombo's a fictional daughter of Hamilcar, right?
Say it.
Name is
What do you got?
Salomba.
No, it's Sophonisba. You got 10 points. 20 points. 20 points. Great, that's fine. The problem of having an infinite number of expansion coefficients when using this technique is ameliorated by the existence of the representative theorem. Epsilon insensitive loss is used as an error measure when performing a regression analysis with this technique. John Platt's sequential minimal optimization algorithm speeds up the initial quadratic programming optimization required to use this technique. The appropriate selection of a good kernel and good kernel parameters are necessary to get good results when using this technique. The hinge loss function is used in soft versions of this technique in which data is not linearly separable. For a space of n-dimensional points, this technique selects the n-1 dimensional hyperplane with the biggest margin between the data on each side. Points name this supervised machine learning technique that non-probabilistically classifies data into two categories. No, no penalty.
A and B, does it?
No. What were you going to say? Perception? No. It's called a support vector machine. Okay, nobody gets that. Toss up 6. Composer and genre required. These pieces are said to employ the principle of open ends or the principle of jigsaw in the influential 1948 companion to them written by Arthur Hutchings. 2 of them end not with the usual rondo but with a theme and variations. The latter of those 2 features the soloist interrupting the tutti in the last movement with a series of 16th notes and is in C minor. The only movement their composer ever wrote in F sharp minor appears in the 6/8 Adagio second movement in one of these pieces. The penultimate one of them, in D major, originally lacked the tempo markings in its final 2 movements and featured many stretches where nothing at all was written for the soloist's left hand. The F major on Dante's second movement of the 21st of these pieces featured prominently in the Swedish film. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Your bonus, answer the following about the wide world of new wave films. For 10 points each, handheld cameras, natural lighting, and rebellious protagonists characterize many of the films in this country's new wave movement, which produce Breathless and 400 Blows. Films from this country's recent new wave include one in which the protagonist argues over the meaning of the word conscience and justice called Police Adjective, as well as a film asking if this country's revolution actually affected a small town titled 1208 east of its capital.
I'm guessing Iran, just because they have this sort of Brazilian
I don't know,
USA.
but it doesn't.
What do you got?
I don't know.
Iran.
It's Romania.
Yeah,
The
no.
Asian financial crisis spurred this country's new wave cinema, which produced such art house films as Last Life in the Universe and the spaghetti western-esque Tears of the Black Tiger.
There is a black
Thailand,
Japan.
Korea, South Korea?
So
South
yeah.
Korea.
Thailand.
Thailand, okay,
10
I guess
points.
one. Yeah.
Toss-up 7. One politician with this surname had a brother who mounted a camera belonging to Bob Inman on his den wall after it was left behind when a helicopter crashed in his front yard trying to gain footage for an attack ad. A female politician with this surname was succeeded by Albert Brewer after she died of uterine cancer. In various speeches, a man of this surname blasted pointy-headed intellectuals who can't park their bicycle straight and claimed that the only 4-letter words hippies didn't know were soap and work. The so-called guru letters revealed that a man of this surname corresponded...
Wallace.
Yes.
Wallace.
MVP! Compounds that undergo this mechanism show a strong broad absorption into high IR or low visible region called an IDCT band for 10 points each. Name this redox mechanism in which electrons are transferred across a covalent bond to a ligand. A ruthenium containing complex name for Kreutz and Taube is commonly used to study this mechanism. What do you got? Yeah, it's called inner sphere electron transfer. The Kreutz-Taube complex is unusual because it contains metal centers with different values of this quantity. For a metal in an inorganic compound, it is denoted by a Roman numeral. Yeah. These ligands are often used for inner sphere electron transfer. These ligands, like cyanide, cyanate, and azide, can be used to replace elements of group 17 in metal complexes. No, they're called pseudohalides.
Oh, replace it. Okay, I see.
You stop that.
Okay.
Annoying as fuck. Toss up 8. Sub-2 micron ethylene bridged hybrid particles are used in Waters' ultra variant of this technique. Either page desalting, cartridge purification, or this procedure is used to remove incorrect products after oligonucleotide synthesis. Injection delay can be used to compensate for an increase in the dwell volume when changing devices for this procedure. Changes in dielectric constant density or refractive index are used in bulk property detectors for this technique. Adding trimethylsilyl groups to free silanol groups in this technique is one method to prevent peak tailing. The solvent composition in this technique is constant in the isocratic flow mode. This technique often uses a packed bed of micron-scale particles.
Okay, size inclusion chromatography.
That is not correct. This technique often uses a packed bed of micron-scale particles with a mobile phase pumped through at up to 600 atmospheres. For 10 points in this form of column chromatography, which uses solvents under high pressure.
HPS.
Okay,
well, that's what it is. All right, good to go.
here's your bonus. This book claims that we are gambling with the future of our planet for the sake of hamburgers and popularized a term coined by Richard D. Ryder, speciesism, for 10 points each, in this 1975 book, which advocates vegetarianism as part of a new ethics with the title group Animal Liberation. In Animal Liberation, Peter Singer essentially extends this theory of the greatest good for the greatest number of people to also include animals.
Utility.
Animal rights scholar Gary Francione laid out 6 principles of this movement, which uses veganism as a baseline, rejects speciesism, and only uses the criterion of sentience to determine if an organism should be used as a resource. The subtitle of the Animals' Rights Debate by Francione contrasts this movement with regulation. We got
Extremism.
abolition. All right, 20 points. Toss it back. The writing of this novel, as well as the history that inspired it, were fictionalized in Emma Tennant's novel, Felony. The previous failures of John Cumnor inspired the protagonist of this story, who's assisted by Mrs. Prest. The assertion, "we are divided, of course, between liking to feel the past strange and liking to feel the familiar," appears in the preface to this novella, which opens volume 12 of the New York editions and describes how it was inspired by Augustus Silsby and Claire Claremont. At the story's end, the narrator sends payment for a miniature portrait of Miss Tita, who earlier horrified him with the revelation that she had burned the title objects. This novella's narrator... Pope Pius V established 3 sets of 5 of these meditations, with the sorrowful one being the contemplation of the agony in the garden for 10 points each. Many of these meditations are performed during a certain type of prayer. They focus on various events in the life and ministry of Christ. We got
Stations of the Cross.
some mysteries of the Rosary. This group of mysteries of the Rosary includes the resurrection and the coronation of the Virgin. Pius V grouped the other 10 mysteries under sorrowful and joyful headings. Glorious. The fourth of the glorious mysteries of the Rosary is this event in which Mary ascended to heaven at the end of her life. Its equivalent in Eastern Orthodoxy is the Dormition.
Consumption.
Toss 'em. According to Spanish folklore, a woman bet the devil her soul so that he could not build this type of object in one night. Luckily for her, the cockerel crowed at dawn just before he finished. One of these, named for Buka, a ruler of the Vijayanagara Empire, is located in modern Hampi. David Johnson theorized that the Nazca lines are actually maps to Incan types of these objects called putillos. The Chorobatis and Roma were used to keep these structures level. One of these, called the Great... It's an aqueduct.
Okay.
Toss up an aqueduct. Here's your bonus. This leader affirmed his commitment to democracy in the Salerno turn for 10 points each. Named this post-World War II leader of the Italian Communist Party, known as Il Migliore. An Italian victory in the 1948 Tour de France helped avert a civil war after he was nearly assassinated by the fascist Antonio Palante.
Moro.
Palmiro Togliatti. Togliatti's successor, Enrico Berlinguer, ruled during a period of unrest in Italy known by this name. This period is perhaps named for a Margherita Bontratta film, and is often said to start with the Piazza Fontana bombings in 1969. Yeah. Berlinguer forged the historic compromise with Aldo Moro, who was in the middle of a scandal involving bribes with this large aerospace company that in 1985 merged with Martin. 20 points for you. That's half time. Let's get a score check.
At half, I have 115 to 90.
Oh, that's right.
They're ostensibly 75.
Because don't you have through 2 nights?
Yeah, we have 90. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
And we have,
Oh, I see.
and we have what?
135, right?
115.
We have 135 on our sheet, so.
Okay, so you have 30, 50, 70,
I'm not.
100.
That's
120,
Oh, no, I added.
very, very
Okay, we're good.
All good?
Yeah.
And there are 75?
Yes.
They got 20 in that bonus, so
So -5 is 38. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Toss of 11. A series of quantities in this result can be obtained from the time correlation functions using the Yamamoto-Zbonsic formulas. This result holds when the system's rate of energy production is at an extremum of the stationary state. An assumption in the derivation of this result is that macroscopic perturbations of the system decay in the same way as microscopic thermal fluctuations, which is its namesake's regression hypothesis. This result, which only applies when the linear approximation holds, states that the matrix of kinetic coefficients is positive definite and symmetric for systems with time reversal symmetry. One of the consequences of this result is that the coefficients of the Peltier and Seebeck effects are equal. For 10 points, name this set of statements, sometimes called the fourth law of thermodynamics, that relates forces and flows in reversible non-equilibrium processes and are named for a Norwegian.
On-singer relation.
They are. This action occurs after the woman who performs it goes into the back room, draws a curtain, and plays a frantic song on a piano. For 10 points each, identify this action of which another character states, "Good God, people don't do such things."
It's beheading the finch, right?
Yeah,
Beheading the bird, Mr. Julie.
Yeah.
Mr. Julie.
Hedda Gabler's suicide.
No, yeah.
Hedda Gabler commits suicide at the end of a play by this Norwegian playwright who also wrote A Doll's House. After Eilert Lovborg loses this object, Hedda Gabler destroys it, then gives Eilert a pistol and asks him to promise that he will use the pistol to commit suicide beautifully.
What's the question?
Loveboard loses
The object.
The object?
Yeah. It's not the manuscript, is it?
No.
What do you got?
Portrait?
No, it's the manuscript.
Oh.
You got 10 points.
That was
Hedda
phenomenal.
Gabler plays the piano.
Okay.
I'll tell you that too.
Shut up, toss of 12. One ruler of this name allegedly flew into a rage after his general unilaterally agreed to neutralize his army at the Convention of Tauroggen, though he later ratified the decision of that general, Hans David York. Another king by this name was forced by France to sign the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, giving up the territory he won at the Battle of Fehrbellin during the Scanian War. That ruler tried to push the Swedes out of his country in the Great Slave Drive. Another ruler of this... Your bonus. A giant pink rubber glove nailed to a brown plane appears next to a classical Greek sculptural head in this artist's The Song of Love, for 10 points each. Name this Greek-born Italian metaphysical painter who depicted the silhouette of a girl rolling a hoop down a long yellow alley in Mystery and Melancholy of a Street. Ferraris Castello Estense appears in the background of this Chirico painting, whose two title figures are the balloon-headed statues in the foreground. A statue representing Apollo stands in the shadow on the right. A bunch of bananas sit on a brick surface in the foreground of a Chirico painting titled For This Place and subtitled The Melancholy of Departure. A famous 1895 Olivier Inson's photograph shows a train crashing through the wall of this place and into the Plat de Rennes.
It's what's the station? Yeah, but it's.
What do you got?
Paris Magazine.
No, it's the Gardner Finance.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
That photograph. There's a book that I had in undergrad that was called
It's
Error
a
Analysis,
institution.
and it has that photograph on the cover. You got 20 points. Yours toss up 13. This man appears as a rotund figure in green bathrobe swatting wildly with backwards facing hands standing next to a woman throwing her arm over her face and holding an upside down bouquet in a painting by Stanley Spencer. He kneels in a rocky landscape gazing up at a barefoot woman in black smock who points at a crucifix in a depiction of him marrying poverty by Andrea Sacchi. In another work, a dream sequence shows him pushing up a collapsing building while a pope sleeps in a red-covered bed. Above that predella, he stands at the base of a cliff underneath a flying Christ against a gold background. Another work by Cimabue shows him with four angels surrounded by a golden halo and dressed in a plain robe, while Giotto depicted this man giving away his mantle and receiving stigmata in a chapel named for him. For 10 points, named the sage from Assisi, who was often depicted preaching to birds.
No, you're good. I switched.
Your
it.
bonus. In the classical limit, these functions collapse into functions named for Langevin for 10 points each. Name the special function which contains terms proportional to the hyperbolic cotangent of 2j plus 1 over 2j times x and the hyperbolic cotangent of 1 over 2j, where j is the angular momentum quantum number. These are the Brouillon functions. The Brouillon functions are used to characterize magnetization in materials exhibiting this kind of weak attractive magnetism, in which spins align parallel to the applied field. Curie's law governed materials with the... No, it's paramagnetism. Paramagnetism have a relative permeability that falls into this mathematical range. It may help you to know that the magnetic susceptibility of a parameter is always positive. No, it's greater than 1. It has to be. The relative permeability has to be greater than 1. You get nothing. Toss of 14. In an experiment with Albert Pepitone and Thomas Newcomb, this man gave subjects a falsified study saying that most college students hated their parents, causing people in the group to feel safer talking about parental issues. That study coined the term later used by Philip Zimbardo, de-individuation. In another work, he interviewed a connoiter who claimed to remember the day she was conceived and who stated that atomic bombs had broken the sonic barrier. Along with that work discussing individuals such as Edna Post and Dr. Armstrong, this psychologist observed that people cease comparing themselves to others with dissimilar skill levels in the theory of social comparison processes. He also devised a boring peg-turning task for which participants were paid either This man was initially tapped by Grover Cleveland to serve as his Attorney General, then become his Secretary of State after the death of Walter Gresham. For temp, which he named this man who sent letters to Lord Salisbury to resolve the first Venezuelan crisis, in which role he issued a namesake document in 1895 that extended the Monroe Doctrine. Richard Olney. In order to resolve this 1894 strike, Olney ordered district attorneys to obtain writs of injunction, then took the unprecedented step of sending in troops under Nelson Miles. Yeah. A few years later, Russell Alger resigned his post as Secretary of War under McKinley in the wake of this wartime scandal, which stemmed from accusations made by Nelson Miles, though neither he nor the Dodge Commission could prove the allegations. Apparently it was the embalmed beef scandal, but we did not require that. Delightful. You received 20 points, toss of 15. J. Yellowlees Douglas's analysis of Stuart Moulthrop's Victory Garden suggests that readers must supply their own variety of this concept. Peter Rabinowitz classifies varieties of this concept as inertial or non-inertial, depending upon expectations, in an article about its effects as a disruptive source. This entity is said to make possible a satisfying consonance with the rest of the work in which it appears, and thus to give meaning to lives and to poems, according to a book by Frank Kermode. A character lives under the name of Mrs. Roughwood and poses for Dante Gabriel Rossetti at the beginning of 2 examples of this narrative element used by John Fowles in The French Lieutenant.
Over here, multiple possible endings.
Yeah. Your bonus. In a story about a woman who commits the sin of telling the truth, this character remarks that the cook was a good cook, as cooks go, and as cooks go, she went. For 10 points each, name this effete youth who complains about how his friends keep giving him copies of the Rubaiyat in a story titled for him On Christmas Presents. A collection titled for him In Russia appeared a year before his creator's Chronicles of Clovis.
Like that. It's like trash dish, but like, I don't know.
What do you got?
It's like asterisk. It's like trash dish. I don't know.
It is a good wrong guess. The correct answer is Reginald. Reginald is the title character of the first 2 short story collections by this author of Sredni Vashtar and The Open Window. A Saki character with his surname jealously guards her Van de Meulen painting and attempts to set up her son with Emmeline Chetroff. That son of this name, Comus, dies in Africa after his boorishness ruins his chances with Elaine de Frey. That's right. 20.
I defend my answer. He was all over the place, man. He was everywhere.
Sure.
Gallic Brush has the thing.
He's not an effete youth, though.
Fair.
Doesn't make any sense. Here's toss of 16. As a child, this character is successfully found fishing from a cloud, raking the coals of a pyre with a copper rod, and hanging in the branches of a tree, carving and painting pictures. After this man kills a baby he's supposed to be watching, he builds a fence with no gate that reaches to the sky and threshes grain into powder, prompting his adoptive father to sell him. This character is sent to herd cows with a loaf of bread.
So clever.
That was a good one. Your bonus, answer the following about Alfred Kroeber. For temporary teach, Kroeber worked for this man, the last of the Yaqui Indians. His wife Theodora wrote a biography about this man in 2 worlds. After his death, Kroeber had his brain removed and studied. In his Handbook of the Indians of California, Kroeber discussed this type of cultural position, a Native American man who takes the role of a woman. This French term is often now replaced by the more gay-friendly two-spirit.
No, that's what he just said. So the French term.
You got it.
Oh, I there's this.
It's Berdache.
Okay.
So it's called.
Yeah, there's.
Kroeber's concept of diffusion, in which cultural traits spread from core areas to the periphery, was inspired by terms he picked up by reading this man's essay, The Geographical Pivot of History. This English geographer is known for putting forth the Heartland theory.
Yeah, Heartland theory. Oh my God.
What do you have?
Russell
No, it's Halford Mackinder.
McKinder. Okay, yeah, that's him.
You got
Oh, that's right.
toss of 17. A war by this name started when the rebel leader Longinus of Cardala was exiled and was joined by a bishop named Conon. That rebellion was squashed by two generals, John Gibbo, also known as John the Hunchback, and John the Scythian. A dynasty by this name included a ruler who divorced his wife Mary of Amnia and sent her to a nunnery, after which he used the abbot Joseph to marry his mistress in an episode called the Moekian Controversy, which prompted a revolt against it by Theodore the Studite. This term names a war of 492 CE fought by the Emperor Anastasius I, and a dynasty whose founder won the Battle of Akroinon and issued the Akloga Law Code. That dynasty's history was chronicled by Theophanes the Confessor and included a ruler who allegedly defecated in his... No. Who allegedly defecated in his baptismal font, earning the cognomen Copronymus. For 10 points, named this by the Byzantine dynasty, which included Empress Irene and the iconoclastic Leo III.
Isaurian?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Your bonus is first discovered by a shuttle mission over French Guiana in 1990. These phenomena have an unknown color since they are faint and occur so rarely. For 10 points each, name these mysterious donut-shaped events which glow as they expand to around 400 kilometers in diameter. Their name indicates that they are caused by perturbations due to electromagnetic pulse sources.
What kind of thing? Oh, maybe like a sprite.
What do you got?
A sprite?
These are called elves.
Fuck, sprites and elves. Oh my God.
Elves, a type of upper atmospheric lightning, seem to originate from within this layer of the atmosphere, which is between the mesosphere and the exosphere.
It's a thermosphere, yeah. Thermosphere.
Yeah. This other variant of upper atmosphere lightning is known to be red-colored and seem to be found in conjunction with cloud-to-ground lightning strikes. They resemble jellyfish and have a name inspired by Shakespeare.
Okay.
An aerial, maybe?
Sure.
Aerial.
These are sprites.
Sprites.
Okay. Okay.
What is your score?
You gotta get that.
Right now I have 3 remaining, 185 to 170.
Yeah. I was debating between sprites and elves.
Yeah. Here is toss of 18. A character who appears in this collection revels in delivering the snarky response. I don't think that's a fair question to put to me. After spending a day contemplating the incomplete phrase, in no case shall the said Bernard bodily be. A story in this collection is about a man who pawns his watch chain for drinking money and tells his friends about standing up his boss. Here is your bonus. Lempetia and Phaethusa served as guards on this island where impending starvation prompts Eurylochus to disobey orders for 10 points each. Name this island home to the immortal but delicious but not invulnerable cattle of Helios. Thrinakia. Odysseus' men ignored his warnings after touching the cattle of Helios, causing their eventual deaths in a storm sent by Poseidon. Odysseus survives the storms but spends the next 7 years stuck on this island with Calypso. We got it's Ogygia. Odysseus could have avoided that mess on Thrinakia if he had listened to the admonitions to stay away from it given to him by the shade of this seer. He was blind after declaring that women enjoy sex more than men, a fact that he learned during his 7 years as a woman.
Interesting.
Points.
Like OGYGIA.
OGYGYI. Here is toss of 19. A peptide inhibitor of SRC is derived from the alpha-1 subunit of this protein. One inhibitor of this protein is derived from the seeds of the Strophanthus gratis. This crystal structure of this protein was found by binding it to 2 rubidium atoms, and in the kidney, this protein is often found to FXD1. One drug that inhibits this protein causes a characteristic PAT with a block finding on overdose, and overdoses of that drug that inhibit this protein are treated with Fab fragments. This protein is closely homologous to the Circa protein, which makes sense because they're both of the P-type. Ubain and digoxin both inhibit this protein, which was originally characterized by Jens Skoo. For 10 points, name this protein that consumes most of the...
Okay, so it was all along the sodium-potassium pump, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it is. Your bonus. Answer the following related to minstrel shows, which I'm going to teach. E.P. Christie led a minstrel troupe known for performing this man's work like My Old Kentucky Home and Old Folks at Home. This composer also wrote O Susanna and Camptown Races.
Foster.
The Virginia minstrels popularized this song in 1843, featuring a title character who washed his face in a frying pan, combed his head with a wagon wheel, and died with a toothache in his heel. He's repeatedly told in the song that he's too late for supper.
Oh my god, I heard this in like 4th grade. I've been looking for it ever since. I can't find it.
John, now you know.
John.
It's Old Dan Tucker.
Oh yeah!
William T. Porter's New York City newspaper, Spirit of the Times, grew infamous for making fun of minstrel shows, but it was even more infamous for publishing The Big Bear of Arkansas, a story by this man who also wrote the anti-slavery novel The Master's House.
Yeah, Big Bear of Arkansas.
Oh my god. Oh. It's awful.
What do you got?
I don't know.
Thomas Banks Thorpe.
Jesus.
You got 10 points. Okay. What do we got?
One with one left, 205, one left.
Okay. Toss of 20. Brian Massumi's Parables of the Virtual used this man's conception of the real and abstract to show that society creates a nature-culture continuum. This author borrowed Marcel Proust's line, real but not actual, ideal but not abstract, to formulate his concept of the virtual, which are the pre-subjects and the pre-objects to subjects and objects. This thinker argued that Einstein's relativity was based on Riemann's conception of multiplicity and not on Ring Bergson's conception, in a book that rehabilitated Bergson's reputation called Bergsonism. With a psychiatrist, this philosopher noted that sexuality is everywhere. The bureaucrat fondles his papers and the bourgeoisie fucks the proletariat, which inspired his use of schizoanalysis.
Okay.
The speaker of a poem in this book explains, I was in such a hurry to meet you, but the traffic was acting exactly like the sky, and notes there is no snow in Hollywood. For templates, each name is a collection of poems which contains Lana Turner High School Laughs, and a poem whose speaker remembers when the title singer whispered a song along the keyboard to Mal Waldron, and everyone and I stopped breathing. Lunch poems. Lunch poems was written by Frank O'Hara, one of the central members of the 1960s school name for this city. The text of Emma Lazarus, the Colossus, appears on the landmark in this city. That's New York. In Why I Am Not a Painter, O'Hara compares his writing a poem about the color orange to a painting Mike Goldberg names after these fish. A plate of them are dumped onto Dottie's head, and Michael Frank's plays noises off.
Sardines.
That's right. 30 points. So why don't you go ahead? Do you have anything you would like to add to this thing?
We aren't involved in it, right? Like if we would just lose the points and.
No. Do we have an argument against it?
You can
No, there's one.
Go ahead and fill out your word.
Yeah, we have nothing
I
else
said
to
let's
say.
go. There was no L in that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's just
Yeah, we have-
let's show an acceptable pronunciation.
No, we're letting them go.
The question is whether Lasso is an acceptable.
Right.
That's
Right, so, yeah, we have nothing, we don't have any comments.
protest. I have 230, 205. Perfect.
All right. God.
You guys are bad at good.
One more form.
This is awful. This is real bad.
Good game, guys.
Whatever happens.
Good job, guys. Good game.
All right, we're gonna have a colonial wide.
Before you just leave, there may be some subtlety of the French language which I'm not aware of. So.
No. Everyone here.
Well, no, it's not for our principle that according to ACF, visual the spelling LASCAUX could be pronounced
You
as
guys don't want to see it.
I disagree with that. I disagree. There's a factual question here about whether this is an acceptable pronunciation. I don't know the answer to that, so I will consult the people.
Driving up the wall.
I don't care.
You don't care?
I don't care. I'm not playing.
All right, please do. That drives me crazy. All right.
Science!
Yeah, go for it.
Right, you do that. Dude, you guys are bad, but have a pointer.
SHO.
Yeah, you can.
You guys, that means